The boardroom on the 32nd floor of the Hartwell Tower went completely silent. The moment, Kwame Asante stood up from his chair. Not the polite silence of people waiting for someone to finish a thought. The kind of silence that falls when everyone in the room knows something has gone irreversibly wrong. He straightened his jacket, slow, deliberate, and reached for the leather portfolio on the table in front of him. He didn't slam it shut. He didn't raise his voice. He simply said, in Cantonese, something that the 12 people seated around that glass table could not understand. Then he turned and walked toward the door. Margaret Hollis, the CEO of Hollis and Crane Development, pushed back her chair so fast it scraped against the floor. Mr. Asante, Kwame, please, if there's been a misunderstanding. He did not turn around. The deal was worth $430 million. 14 months of negotiation, 3 trips between Toronto and Hong Kong, and now it was walking out the door in a gray wool suit, pressing the elevator button with one finger. Nobody moved. 3 floors below, in a service corridor that smelled faintly of industrial cleaner and old carpet, Eugenia Boateng was pushing a linen cart around the corner toward room 2914. And she was 63 years old. She had bad knees, the left one worse than the right. And she wore orthopedic shoes that her daughter had ordered online from a company in Mississauga. Her uniform was pressed. It was always pressed. That was something she'd decided a long time ago. In a different city, in a different life, whatever job she had, she would show up to it with dignity. She had been working as a housekeeper at Hartwell Towers attached hotel for 11 years. Before that, she had been a secondary school teacher in Accra for 19. Before that, she had been a student at the University of Ghana, studying linguistics, and then a graduate student in Montreal, where she had written a thesis on tonal language acquisition in adult learners. None of that was visible from the outside. What was visible was a 63-year-old woman in a blue uniform pushing a cart of clean towels. That was usually enough for people to stop seeing her altogether. The morning had started the way most mornings started for Eugenia. She arrived at 6:45, changed in the staff room, collected her assignment sheet from the rack on the wall. Room assignments, turn-downs, special requests. She noted the 3rd floor conference suite was flagged for VIP services. Extra towels, a specific brand of mineral water, the kind of thing management circled in red pen and attached a reminder note to. Her supervisor that week was a man named Derek who had been promoted 6 months ago, and still hadn't figured out how to talk to the women he supervised, without sounding like he was doing them a favor. He stopped her in the corridor at 7:15. Boateng. Conference level today, not residential. They've got a major client coming in, so I need everything spotless. And I mean spotless. Can you handle that? Eugenia looked at him. I've been handling it for 11 years. He made a small noise that wasn't quite a laugh and walked away. She pushed her cart to the elevator. The delegation from the Asante group had arrived the previous evening. Kwame Asante himself came through the lobby at 9 p.m. with 4 associates, and a woman who appeared to be a personal assistant. All of them moving the way people move when they are used to rooms rearranging themselves to accommodate their presence. Eugenia had been restocking a housekeeping station near the lobby when they walked in. She noticed him the way she noticed most people, quietly, without appearing to. He was speaking Cantonese to one of his associates. She listened for a moment, not because she intended to, but because the language caught her ear the way a familiar melody does when you hear it in an unexpected place. She had learned Cantonese during her years in Montreal, where her closest friend had been a woman named Lily Chen who worked at the university library. They had spent 3 years meeting for lunch twice a week, and somewhere in those lunches, in Lily's patient correction of her tones and her own stubborn refusal to give up on a language that most people told her was too difficult for a non-native speaker, she had become not fluent exactly, but close. Functional. More than functional. She had never once used it professionally. There had never been a reason to. She went back to restocking the station. The delegation moved through the lobby and disappeared into the elevator. That was all. The next morning, Eugenia was restocking the service pantry on the 32nd floor when the voices started coming through the door of the conference suite. She wasn't trying to listen. The door was simply not fully latched, and sound travels in ways that architecture doesn't always account for. She heard the formal back and forth of negotiation, the particular cadence of people choosing their words carefully. And then she heard something shift. One of Kwame Asante's associates said something in Cantonese, low and quick, directed at him. Eugenia paused. The associate was talking about the clause on page 41. She set down the stack of folded towels in her hands. He said it again. Page 41. The sub-clause regarding operational authority. He said, and she heard this clearly, that the language was vague in the English version, but explicit in the supplementary document they'd been handed. That the supplementary document gave Hollis and Crane an override provision that would allow them to dissolve the partnership within 18 months without penalty, under conditions that they defined. He said it was designed to look like standard protective language. It wasn't. Kwame listened, then he said, in Cantonese, that he had already seen it, that he had been waiting to see if they would acknowledge it. They hadn't. There was a silence. Then the sound of a chair moving. Eugenia stood very still in the service pantry. She heard the conference room door open. She heard Margaret Hollis's voice, high and urgent. She heard the elevator chime. She stepped into the corridor. The elevator doors were closing. She could see, through the narrowing gap, the back of Kwame Asante's jacket. She did not think about it. She walked to the elevator and pressed the down button, and when the doors opened on an empty car, she got in. The 31st floor. The 30th. She pressed the lobby button. He was standing in the lobby when the doors opened. He had not yet reached the front entrance. He was speaking to his assistant, quietly. Eugenia stepped out of the elevator. She knew how this would look. A 63-year-old housekeeper in orthopedic shoes, walking across a hotel lobby, to approach a man who was surrounded by associates and who had just walked out of a $400 million negotiation. She knew exactly how this would look. She walked across the lobby anyway. Mr. Asante. He turned. His expression was not unkind. It was simply the expression of a man who was not expecting to be addressed by a housekeeper and who was not sure yet what to do with that. She switched to Cantonese. She said, I apologize for interrupting. I was in the service pantry on your floor. I heard what your associate said about the subclause. I think you should know that I understood everything. He looked at her for a moment. His assistant had gone very still. He responded in Cantonese. He asked her to repeat what she had heard. She did, precisely, without editorializing, without softening anything. She described the clause, the override provision, the specific language his associate had flagged. She told him what she understood its practical effect to be, that any operational decision made by the joint entity could be reversed unilaterally by Hollis and Crane within the first year and a half, under definitions they controlled. Kwame was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, still in Cantonese, Where did you learn to speak like this? From a friend, Eugenia said. A long time ago, in Montreal. He looked at her, really looked at her, in the way that people almost never looked at her anymore, and something in his face changed. What is your name? Eugenia Boateng. He nodded slowly. Then he said, Mrs. Boateng, would you be willing to come back upstairs? What happened next was not comfortable for anyone in that conference room. Margaret Hollis watched Kwame Asante walk back through the door with a housekeeper, and felt the specific dread of someone who knows they are about to lose control of a situation they thought they had perfectly managed. Her legal counsel, a man named Warren, who had been with the firm for 20 years, went still when he saw Eugenia. Kwame set his portfolio back on the table. He did not sit down. He looked at Margaret and said, in English, I'd like to revisit page 41. Margaret said, of course. We're happy to clarify any. I'd also like, Kwame said, for Ms. Boateng to remain in the room. The silence that followed was a different kind of silence than the one before. This one was the silence of people recalculating. Warren said, I'm not sure it's a request. Kwame said, not a question. Eugenia stood near the door. She was still holding the small notepad she carried in her uniform pocket, the one she used to note room numbers and service requests. She hadn't meant to bring it up with her. She had brought it up anyway. What followed was 2 hours of the most careful negotiation Eugenia had ever witnessed. Kwame Asante was not a man who raised his voice. He did not need to. He had the particular calm of someone who has already decided that the truth is on his side and is simply waiting for the room to catch up. Clause by clause, he walked through the supplementary document. Each time there was a question about the Cantonese phrasing in any of the supporting materials, and there were several. He turned to Eugenia. She answered, precisely, without opinion, without advocacy. Just the language, accurately rendered. Margaret's legal team had no counter to it. The supplementary document said what it said. The override provision was exactly what Quam's associate had identified. By noon, the supplementary document had been removed from the agreement entirely. A revised framework was proposed. Quam sat back down. At 1:30, they broke for lunch. Derek found Eugenia in the service corridor at 2 o'clock. His face was doing something complicated. I heard you were, they said you were in the conference room. I was. That's not your assigned area, Boateng. I specifically. Mr. Asante asked me to be there, Eugenia said. You can take it up with Ms. Hollis if you like. She went back to her cart. Margaret Hollis came to find her at 4:15. She was a tall woman, well-dressed, the kind of person who carried herself like she expected apologies. She stood in the doorway of the service pantry and looked at Eugenia for a moment without speaking. I wanted to thank you, she finally said. Eugenia didn't answer right away. She was folding a set of pillowcases, working the corners square the way she'd been doing for 11 years. You very nearly lost a $400 million deal because of a clause your own legal team buried in a supplementary document, Eugenia said. I'm not sure I'd frame that as something to thank me for. Margaret was quiet. I've been working on this floor for 11 years, Eugenia said. I know the names of every long-stay guest. I know which clients prefer the blinds left at half-mast, and which ones want the Do Not Disturb sign respected until noon. I know things about this building and the people in it that don't appear in any file in your office. She set down the pillowcase. I've never once been asked. Margaret said nothing for a long time. Then, what would it take for you to stay? I'm not leaving, Eugenia said. I live 12 minutes away. My grandchildren go to school around the corner. I'm not going anywhere. I meant, what would it take for you to stay, and to be properly compensated for what you actually bring? Eugenia looked at her. I have a linguistics degree and a graduate thesis on tonal language acquisition, she said. I speak English, Twi, French, Cantonese, and passable Mandarin. I have been folding your towels for 11 years. She picked up the next pillowcase. Start there. Kwame Asante stopped by the housekeeping station on his way out of the building at 5:30. He didn't stay long. He handed Eugenia a business card, plain white, his name and a Hong Kong number, and said, in Cantonese, if you're ever looking for a different kind of work, I would consider it a personal favor if you called. She looked at the card. I'll think about it, she said. He smiled. A real one, not a professional one, and walked out through the lobby doors into the late afternoon. The agreement was signed 3 weeks later. $430 million, revised terms, no override provisions. Margaret Hollis issued a statement about the strength of the partnership. Kwame Asante gave a brief comment to a reporter from the Globe and Mail. Neither of them mentioned what had happened in the lobby. Eugenia read the article over her morning coffee. She folded the paper and set it on the kitchen table next to her tea. Her daughter called that evening. Mum, I heard something at work today. Someone said there was a story going around about a woman at Hartwell. Who? Yes, Eugenia said. Was that you? Yes. A pause. And you just walked up to him? In the lobby? He was leaving, Eugenia said. I had information he needed. What else would I do? Her daughter laughed, and it was the kind of laugh that has tears somewhere near the back of it. Mum, Don't make a fuss, Eugenia said. Come for dinner Sunday. Bring the children. I've been thinking about Eugenia Boateng for a while now. About the fact that she walked into that lobby, knowing exactly how it would look, and went anyway. About the 19 years of teaching, the graduate thesis, the 3 years of lunchtime Cantonese that she never discarded, never thought of as wasted, even when the world gave her every reason to. There's something I want to say directly, and I'll say it simply. The most dangerous assumption we make about other people is that their circumstances tell us something accurate about their value. A uniform is a uniform. A job title is a job title. What a person carries inside them, what they've learned, what they've survived, what they've quietly held on to through years of being overlooked. That doesn't show up on an assignment sheet. Eugenia didn't need to be rescued. She didn't need anyone to discover her. She already knew who she was. She had always known. The question was whether anyone else was finally going to pay attention.